We want to be the platform that connects everyone at every level of the event ecosystem to the people that would make sense for them and democratize the relationships that they would need to succeed.
Welcome to Partner Path, a podcast that unpacks the venture capital and growth equity ecosystem from a junior perspective. Young entrepreneurs and investors have already had a massive impact on the industry, having started unicorns and launched billion-dollar funds. We discuss these success stories and more by sharing perspectives and advice from some of the industry's most prominent role models. This podcast expresses our views as of the date published and does not represent the views of and is not endorsed by any company for which we work.
Today we are chatting with Avante Price, CEO and co-founder of POSH. Avante dropped out of NYU at 20 to democratize access to the world of live experiences. In 2023, POSH hosted 25,000 events, 70,000 app downloads, and scaled marketplace usage by over 1,000% year over year. Welcome, Avante.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So take us back to NYU. What were your college hobbies? How did you discover the pain points surrounding event planning?
Yeah, so when I first came to college, even before college, I was really passionate about both startups as well as music and specifically DJing. My dad's hobby outside of teaching, his full-time job is DJing, so he taught me at a young age. And I came to this city, and more than anything, I think you can relate to this, or anyone who's a freshman in college can relate to this. You want to meet people. It was a really easy way to meet people by DJing, inviting them to cool events around the city. They wanted things to do. I got to make a bunch of awesome friends. And through that experience as an NYU student, kind of using DJing as my lever to introduce myself to more people socially, I was able to get immersed into the event space in New York and learn a lot about the intricacies of how it worked from an operational standpoint. And eventually, fast forward, after doing that for about 2-3 years, meeting a bunch of people in the space, learning a ton about it, I started hosting my own events, mainly just because I didn't think that the events targeting the college students and my friends were really speaking to them in a meaningful way. And that's when I got my feet wet with understanding how the event software landscape was mapped and shaped. And again, similar issues arose where the products that existed for us to manage our own event community, just targeting NYU and Columbia students, were not all there. They weren't helping us really establish a brand or communicate the events we were trying to establish before people got there. So it was kind of just every page looked the same. It was very hard to be more interactive, and it was also hard to retain customers. And so that was the genesis of POSH. We actually built software for our own event brand first and really quickly realized how powerful that was. And, through an amalgamation of the pandemic occurring, as well as us having that time given back to us to move to online school and the incumbent platforms having to deal with the pandemic and lay off a lot of their staff, we were able to seed ourselves in the market really well.
So taking a few steps back, you and I were in college at the same time and different tech and invitation platforms existed. You were hosting an event in New York City, DJing. What were you using to inform the community?
Yeah, so I was using two products mainly. Started on Eventbrite because that's kind of what people know when they get started in the space, right? If you don't really know a lot about the event space, Eventbrite's kind of the brand name that you'll just start using, and really quickly you realize it doesn't have the products and the features that you need. And so after a few events and kind of looking at the landscape around me, I started actually using a product called Night Out, which no longer exists, but spoke really, really well to the nightlife event organizer use case. And it actually served us way better than Eventbrite. It was actually a great product. A lot of people loved it. Ended up merging with another company. I think they just couldn't hit escape velocity, and it ended up getting rolled up into the other company, which has a much worse product. But we liked it, and it still didn't meet the mark. And so we decided to build our own product because there were just a few features that we really wanted.
Okay. And what were, I guess, first, who is we? How did you meet your co-founder?
That's a great question. So when we started our event community, actually, I started hosting events with just a couple friends that I had worked with on other events. So I was DJing. I had a few other friends who were like affiliates or promoters of these event brands that I would DJ at. And I told them, hey, look, I have the relationships with venues, want to bring your people to a community that I start instead of this community that we're working at right now. We're not really vibing or really liking the person that we're working for now. Let's branch off and start our own thing. And they were all for it. And through that, Eli had actually shot me a DM on Instagram and was like, hey, I saw your content. I saw a few of your gigs. Would love to come shoot some of your events, because he was a photographer. And so he came to a few of my events that I was DJing at. And really quickly, we just became awesome friends, because we both had startup experience in the back and beforehand that we worked on side projects, and also the shared love of music and events. And so really quickly, we were hosting these events. He was the marketing guy, creating our flyers, our assets, our social media graphics, everything end to end, kind of like a head of marketing in a sense for the events. And he also had the self-taught coding background. So effectively pivoted from, marketing these events to creating software that made us realize, wow, we have something really powerful on our hands here.
And you also mentioned earlier there were some key features that the current platforms didn't offer. What were those features, and how were you thinking through, okay, we're doing something great, we found this pain point, but you still got to make money?
Yeah, I could feature dump for days. I think it's more like three main themes that they didn't meet, which was one, customization and being able to establish a brand voice through these pages. Every other platform, every page looks rather similar to each other. On our platform, you're able to customize it. The easy way to think about it was like Shopify for events. The secondary component and theme was marketing and retention. It was very hard once you got someone in the door to get them to come back. You had to manually text them on your phone or use a third-party CRM if you're even knowledgeable enough about those products, which a lot of organizers, they don't know what MailChimp or Salesforce, HubSpot really are. And the SMS products out there actually really are pretty bare bones and minimal. And so one was the white label customization. Second feature was a pretty simple integrated SMS CRM. And the third component was liquidity and access to capital. A lot of independent organizers, we were college students. We were all broke as college students, and we needed access to the capital we were making by selling tickets to our event immediately. But to reduce risk, every other platform doesn't pay you out until after the event ends. And so it was very hard because we had upfront expenses. We had to pay the venue, we had to pay the staff, we had to pay our friends, we had to pay ourselves. We couldn't get the cash until a week or two after the event. And so really simply, we built this product. That was, I think, the biggest pain point it solved by building it ourselves is we got cash as tickets were sold. Stripe was just paying us out before the event actually took place so we could cover our upfront expenses. But we saw that value, and that was immediately one of our core pillars from the onset was we're going to give people that exact same access to capital as they sell tickets rather than waiting after the event. And to date, we processed north of 75 million bucks, and about 40 grand has been burned in terms of people that got money and ran away with it because the event didn't take place, et cetera. So like these companies are mitigating risk for pretty much no reason here. I'll happily lose that 40 grand to give the other $75 million and people access to their money immediately when they deserve it.
And we'll definitely dive into the event side more, and I think some of just the logistics and more of the technicality around the product, but just kind of staying in the early days. So you worked on POSH for a year and a half before deciding to drop out. Was there a pivotal moment that you knew it was time, whether you had the team in place, you had somewhere to work, the product was 90% there? Was there something that clicked?
Yeah, I think for everyone it's different. For us, it was definitely a pretty simple thing I told myself at the beginning that Eli definitely agreed with, which was you're in college usually to get a solid salary and a job that's pretty legitimate that you wouldn't be able to get without that degree. But if I could put food on the table and frankly pay myself the same amount that I would make with that bachelor's degree, then why would I even want to complete this degree? And so effectively, when it got to the point where both from a fundraising perspective, but also from a revenue perspective, we were doing revenue since day one, we could pay ourselves salaries that weren't, ramen salaries. And we were like, all right, this doesn't make any sense. The degree is not going to give us any more strictly, frankly, just capital value at all. And even if we wanted to, we could come back, obviously, and finish up. So it made a lot of sense. It wasn't anything. We were probably paying ourselves 80 grand a year at that point, but it was meaningful enough to pay rent and not feel like we were starving, have a nice dinner every once in a while. So it made sense to drop out at that point.
Is there anything you regret from the early days or anything you would do different?
It's a great question. I think a lot of it is around planning, both on an operational side as well as the product side. Obviously, any early stage startup, I think, is probably going to agree with this, that like at the onset, it's just build, like go, acquire customers, build whatever features people are asking for. But a lot of the time, what happens is you end up with a lot of operational and product debt of features that were built without being thought through the right way, operational go-to-market processes that weren't built the right way. We had sales and success was one role on our team collaboratively. So if you were an AE, you would close accounts and then manage the accounts that you closed, as well as trying to bring in new business simultaneously, because we thought that we could like turn that process on its head and make it like a duopoly like role. And like, just not how any companies run, but also like we didn't have enough money to hire a sales and success team. So we were like, we're just going to hire these operators who do both. And we thought it was a good idea, but for the first 3.5, 4 years in, for the first year and a half or two, that is exactly how the company ran. And like, clearly it would have been so much better once we separated those teams. We realized like, wow, it's really awesome to have people own a certain domain and build out processes that are specific to them. So it's really just about like thinking and being more thoughtful around how you build out and scale processes and the product itself.
Definitely. And it was your first time building and having that structure in place. You were just figuring it out as you were going and seeing what worked on X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
Okay, so fast forward, you guys have hosted over 25,000 events. You've raised $9 million in funding, and you have a lot of interesting community-oriented products released or in the works. And so I think it would be great maybe to touch on what you're building on that front and what makes Posh different from some of your main competitors, such as Eventbrite, Dice, Partyful, etc.
Yep. So the main way to think about Posh is that we're really trying to create a new market. Those products that you named are competitive to one component of what Posh does today, which is event management. And they all own their own niche in that vertical. Dice is helping people that host very large scale events. It's not consumer facing at all. If you or I wanted to go sign up, we actually couldn't. You have to go sign up for a demo and they actually qualify you if you're even able to be on Dice based on the quality of your events. Going down to the long tail of the market, you look at Partyful. They don't have any payment functionality. They're more geared towards small, intimate friends of friends events. How we put ourselves is mainly focused on helping people make money from social experiences. So the small friends of friends event, there's no monetization component. And the Dice user is hosting something that needs a lot of enterprise-esque features that would not apply to the people on our platform. We are appealing to people that are building, establishing, and scaling in-person communities around a certain demographic or a niche interest. And that can be anyone, and that can be any type of interest, from health and wellness to nightlife to art exhibits to really any social community that just gathers people around a shared interest. From a feature standpoint, basically just centers around products that help you make more money. And I think boiling that down to more of a first principles perspective, we started by helping hosts make money, but now we're trying to help other people besides hosts make money. Think you could make money by bringing your friends to events, or your friend that works in finance but also has a DJ dream can go get booked for gigs because there's someone who's equally as talented as him or her at hosting events that wants a B or C list DJ that's just starting out to collaborate with. And similar to how dating apps are someone for everyone, we want to be the platform that connects everyone at every level of the event ecosystem to the people that would make sense for them and democratize the relationships that they would need to succeed.
And I really love what you said when it's people care about who is going rather than who is performing, because that's so true. When I go to a lot of events today, it's mostly with my friends or someone wanting to go together and be a part of this community. How do you optimize for delivering on that?
Yeah, that's a lot about both product and go-to-market and how we strategize. On the go-to-market side, there's a lot of money being thrown at large-scale enterprise accounts to be exclusive to products like Dice and Ticketmaster. It's a strictly pay-to-play monopoly on that end, and that's why Ticketmaster has a monopoly. They were first to market, and then they paid everyone to stay exclusive to them. The product, is not anything insane, but when Posh comes to market, even if we wanted to build features for those use cases, we'd also have to write a check to those users for them to even consider us, because they've been getting that check for 10 or 20 years. And so that's what Dice is doing on the upper end of the market. But I think when you think about who's going, that is not what those events are catering towards. They're catering to sports teams, Taylor Swift, Drake, whatever it might be, larger scale acts where you go with one or two friends to experience the entertainment that's happening. The events on Posh, you're going because you want to meet other people that are interested in the same things as you or that you relate to in some meaningful way. And that's all comes down to how we market the brand, what kind of accounts that our sales team is going after, how we display the landing page, and how we can try to convert attendees into organizers. basically by communicating that, like, if you have a niche interest that you're interested in and you think you can bring people together around that niche interest, you can make money on our platform.
And I mean, it's related to the money piece. I'm sure some of these companies such as Dice and Splash are attracted to the enterprise opportunities because enterprise accounts can typically mean higher ACVs, which can typically mean more money in their bank account. So how do you think about pricing and gaining enough market share to continue at the growth rate that you've been growing?
Yeah, it's a great question. You can think about volume and revenue, and then you can think about something that people tend to forget about in startups, which my best friend, profit. And these companies are paying for lots of volume, but when you look at the gross margin, there's negligible if they're not maybe losing money on a lot of these accounts. For us, our CAC to LTV is like 1 to 10, in certain scenarios even higher. And so it's really a matter of getting people on board who might not be doing that much volume today, but helping them scale those businesses so that tomorrow they're doing a ton. And if we can get you to host your first event on POSH and retain you and scale your brand up through where you're hosting multi-thousand person events, then that is obviously much more lucrative to us, where maybe we don't have to do even a fraction of the volume that Ticketmaster or these other companies are doing to still be a much more valuable company, because we're actually able to eventually pay investors dividends and profit because of how we've helped people scale.
Got it. People are coming to POSH and growing with the platform.
Exactly.
Do you target individuals such as DJs like yourself and influencers?
Exactly. It's a great example. I think a lot of this is about education. We just hired an awesome head of community who's helping us with a bunch of attendee to organizer related programs where we can educate attendees on how the top organizers on the platform are making money. So we just had an influencer last week who found us through an event that she went to. She realized, like, oh, I can do this. She makes TikToks about where to go out in the city and like food recommendations, and was able to host an event, bring 200 people through the door to a pretty intimate experience, and was able to make like 15 grand in ticket revenue off of hosting her first ever event because of being educated about this opportunity. Frankly, not even through the efforts of POSH, but because of just the product and the type of events she saw speaking to her. And one of the people on our success team brought this to me and was like, this is really exciting because it's like, this is the ecosystem working like towards itself and building on itself, where people are getting the context clues from what kind of events exist in the platform and learning, like, why can't I do that? And it's our job just to light more fuel into that fire.
And it sounds like things are rolling. You're experiencing great momentum, acquiring different types of customers, different types of events. But what does a great 2024 look like for you, or what's next on the roadmap?
Yeah, a lot of it is around helping other people make money that are not hosts. So there is one component about what you talked about. I want to help a DJ host their first event, but why not help a DJ get booked directly? And so what we're working on in the back half of the year and really going into 2025 is building out a marketplace for all the different stakeholders in the event space to stand up profiles and start connecting and transacting with each other. So you can think DJs, bartenders, photographers, venues, talent. So think, what if you wanted a magician for whether it's your birthday party or a VC cocktail mixer, who knows, right? You could go on and book these different types of entertainment or resources that you might need. And this is really helpful, A, for communities that want to scale and want to add a different flair or attribute to their event. But also, as we all know, it would be great to host events in cities that we don't live in. And sometimes you might have an audience as an influencer in a city you don't live in, but you don't have the on-the-ground relationships with the event stakeholders that you would need. So I'm a TikTok influencer and I live in New York and half my audience is in LA. Great, I can get 100 people in the room, but I don't know who the GM of this random nightclub is, as well as a photographer to capture the moment and some other staff, a security guard to stand at the door, etc. And so if we can democratize those relationships, we can empower a lot more people, not only to start these brands and communities, but also anyone who's doing it now to scale.
I would love to chat about raising VC capital. I've never been on the other side of the table before, and you raised it a young age. So I'd love to hear your process and like any suggestions you have for younger founders going through that for the first time.
We could have 3 episodes on that topic. I think that the simplest suggestion is, if you're too worried about fundraising, it's not going to happen. And that's not what you should be focused on at the earliest of stages. I think as you get later and later, like, you're always fundraising is kind of the mindset, but like, you have to build a product that people love You have to have numbers that do not look like the same numbers that, frankly, these VCs see every single day of their life. Like, you have to have them walk away from the 30-minute intro call you have with them feeling like, I've never seen something like this, or I haven't seen something like this for literally a few years. And if you don't feel like your company is impressive enough to speak to people in that way, no matter what your stage is at, right? It can be pre-seed, seed, et cetera. Then you should not be going and having these conversations, because you're just burning meetings. And I think a lot of my founder friends are so eager to go fundraise and go start having these conversations, but you really only get one shot. Like, first impressions are everything. And like, to get someone who walked away from the first call unexcited to be excited later on is a lot harder than going into a meeting and just getting someone excited off the bat. And so a lot of it is like, you have to focus on building something that really, really stands out and have a lot of energy and conviction that what you're doing, and you look around yourself at other companies in your space, or that these, people you speak to might have looked at, that this is really something different, has a lot of vision, has large potential, but also is executing and growing right now at a clip that's a lot faster or a lot larger than other companies at your stage.
And then what about the person? How do you convince them that you're the right person to build in this space, to build this product, especially when revenue numbers are lower, you're younger, first-time founder?
Yeah, I think the general
Vibes. I'm kidding.
Well, yeah, vibes. I was gonna say, like, the general shift I've been seeing is that young first time founders being counted out less and less because they've seen so many that have been successful, right? So, but with that said, I definitely get that, like you said, vibe or feeling across the table sometimes, where it's like, how is this person who I was 18 when we started going to be able to do this? And I think obviously, as we get older and more mature and frankly have better talent, those questions go away. We have people who are 15 years older than us working with us. And I think just showing that we can manage those people and create a place where they want to come and are excited is enough for these investors, frankly, to feel that conviction that we are able to shepherd this vision. But on the earlier stages, it was very hard. Like, it would be lying to say anything other than it's very hard when you are a first-time founder and you're 19, 20 years old, and you don't have people who are a lot older than you and a lot of top talent. A lot of people on the team at the early stages were hustlers just like us, who were down to come in for a solid amount of equity and not a lot of cash and just execute. And that was great. And they executed really well, clearly. And they were a great bang for the buck. But sometimes that's not what's exciting enough for the investors. They want to see someone that has a track record and has the big logos on their LinkedIn, et cetera. And so a lot of it was, frankly, pretty frustrating at the onset. But I think nothing speaks better than execution. And you can have all the logos on your resume as possible, but when you show someone undeniable revenue and numbers and growth, as well as an undeniable product that stands out in your space, then a lot of those questions.
You touched on this earlier. You do have employees that are older than you, some which of 10 to 15 years. I guess, how do you inspire your team, especially those that might be older with more experience?
Yeah, I'm really, really excited to work with a lot of those people, because what drives me is, frankly, more than any of the other, I guess, ancillary effects of just being a founder and being able to build something great. It's the ability to learn all the time and being able to wake up every day and learn something new from these people. And I think now is a stage where I'm learning a lot more than ever, because I get to spend all day, every day with people that have more experience in their domain than me. And so right now our whole goal is like, I only want to hire people that are smarter than me. And so with that, I think comes a level of honesty and humbleness to tell them, like, you know the best decision to make here. And they really appreciate that, because they're coming from larger organizations where a lot of egos were at play and people looked at years of experience or seniority based on someone's C-suite or head or VP, right? And they don't really know how to navigate those dynamics. But here it's really just a matter of who has the most domain expertise. And if you have the most domain expertise, I am going to listen to you over whatever my opinions are. We'll have obviously a healthy conversation, but I think by giving them that room to work and grow, they're very excited, because really all that I need to do is provide a vision and an end goal and keep us on track. But I'm never in the weeds with what they're doing, and I provide the end goal and they provide the action items on how to get there. And I think that's a really great way that we work together, that keeps them excited. As long as the vision's always evolving and that the other teams are executing against the plan, that's how you should manage an organization, in my opinion.
How did you determine who was the right first hire to make?
I think our hiring ideology has evolved a lot over time. In the beginning, it was a lot of, frankly, like when you don't have the press or the users, et cetera, it's really about like, you'll just take, frankly, like whoever is the most excited. So it's like, there's a lot of people that are interested. Oh, you're working on a startup. Can I come work at your startup? But a lot of people just like the word startup and don't really understand like the blood, sweat, and tears that comes with it. And so the hiring funnel at the very beginning was all about who is hungriest and who is willing to come in and like maybe work on a Friday night or a Saturday or a Sunday and do a 14-hour day, or I had a few people fly with me to London for 6 weeks to try to like throw our hat in the ring there and expand there. And like, they wouldn't get to see their friends or do any of that stuff for 6 weeks. And they're living in an Airbnb with the CEO who's waking up every day like, all right, guys, let's go. Let's get after it, which is like, can be a lot of pressure, but like they liked it. And those are the type of people that we wanted on the team. So it's really just a matter of like, who is excited to come build something and be at the early stage of something. Now it's shifted, right, as most companies do as they evolve, into who has the most domain expertise to really refine janky processes that exist in this operational debt, like I was talking about, to make this a venture scale company. But at the onset, it's just about like, who is going to really literally execute the most and be excited to do it every single day.
Something else, I guess, that you mentioned related to the long-term vision is the Shopify for events. Is what exactly does that mean, and how have you learned from Shopify's journey?
Yeah. So Shopify is really awesome because how we compare them is very similar to how we would compare ourselves to Eventbrite, which is would consider ourselves to be Shopify as Amazon is to Eventbrite, in the sense that Amazon is a marketplace where the seller doesn't really have a lot of voice, and their entire goal is to optimize the end user's checkout experience. They do not care about the seller. Eventbrite is a marketplace, a hodgepodge of different events where the events all look the same, and they're just trying to convert a marketplace visitor to buy anything. And because of that, it leads to a really bad experience, even for that end user, actually, while Amazon, on the other hand, has actually done it right. But the Shopify, on the other hand, speaks to the right seller, and we're speaking to the organizer. And we've really built this company in a way that was supply first, where we wanted to build all the tooling for the organizers to manage their back end, whether it was operations, finance, marketing, et cetera. And now that we have a bunch of organizers who really love us, who are being retained really, really, really well, much better than anyone else in the market, now we're starting to build consumer-facing features, but we still have the 80-20 rule present, where 80% of the features that we're building here are organizer-facing to help people scale their businesses. Because if you're not building for the supply, the demand will never come, because these organizers are hosting an event and they're selling 500 tickets to people in their demographic, and maybe we sell 50 from our marketplace that we gave to them. But this person just brought us 500 users who we can now convert into organizers, convert to marketplace users, all this other stuff. So if the organizer is not happy, we lose. So it's all about building tools for them to have a better experience and actually make more money. Because obviously, if you're making more money on POSH, you're going to stay on POSH forever.
But have you had to pick and choose what tools to build? Because I'm sure some organizers have asked you for specific features and tools that would take a good amount of your engineers' bandwidth.
And you'd be surprised how robust of tools that people have asked for that they just don't understand the that it is inclined. I had a funny experience the other day where an AE told me that an organizer he had a demo with introed him to someone as a referral. The referral on the next demo told him, all right, I'm actually not a referral. I'm a software engineer that's friends with so-and-so. And he put me on this call to understand the product to see if I could build it for $5,000. And he was like, can you please tell so-and-so as a software engineer that this is clearly going, he's like, how many employees do you have? He's like, yeah, like we have 25 people, like 8 engineers. And he's like, can you please tell the guy who referred me to you that this is not going to be possible for $5,000 because he does not believe me. And these people like genuinely want their own platform and are willing to like pay for it. That's why the Shopify-esque vision works, because they do want a customized experience, but a lot of them underestimate the technical lift that is involved there with customizing it to the extent that they may want. Boiling down to like your question is, it's really a matter of prioritization and how many people that each feature is going to speak to. So if I get a request from someone that's really big in the beginning of the company and they're doing $500,000 in annual GMV, that was priority number one. But now, frankly, even the biggest users are not doing more than 0.5% to 1% of the annualized GMV at the absolute maximum. So even our biggest user making a feature request actually has to get weighed against this other feature that could affect people who are doing maybe 50 to 100K who make up 30 to 40% of the revenue. And those are kind of just general numbers, right? That's probably not how it's distributed. But the idea here is measuring a request against the GMV contribution of that cohort rather than the user themselves.
What's been one of the most unique or coolest events you've seen on your platform?
Some that just wouldn't even be possible to share on the podcast. There's some really crazy communities out there, but I think coolest is we have an annual offsite to this event in Miami. It's called We Belong Here. It's about 8 to 10,000 people, 2-day festival. It's on President's Day weekend, and it's one of the biggest events to use the platform. Frankly, not our ICP, but I think that's a really great ode for us to show that like we can be used by Ticketmaster scale events as well as these smaller experiences, but also for everyone on our team. We go down and like these people who were working so hard on this can see the fruits of their labor and how this product is being used at scale for something that's a really, really unique experience. EDM music festival on literally the beach, like on the sand. So you can walk into the water, go swimming, and then go back to the stage and listen to music. It's just a really, really awesome bonding experience for everyone to experience the product.
That's awesome. Are you still actively DJing?
Yeah, definitely less and less because there's lots and lots more weekends I'm working as this company scales, and DJing is mostly a weekend activity. So if you play a gig the best time to play a gig is 12 to 2. It's like the best slot of the night. That means you're not going to bed until 3:30, and then your next day is pretty much ruined. We've all had those nights. So it's really like something that I try to do once a month just to frankly stay in the culture and keep talking to these people and stay close to the customer. But it's definitely not as sustainable with the founder lifestyle.
Yep, that's fair. Awesome. Well, do you want to end with a quick fire round?
For sure.
Actually, I don't know why I'm asking. You don't have a choice. Just kidding. You always have a choice. Okay. What's a piece of advice to someone debating dropping out and starting a company?
The greatest advice for someone dropping out and starting a company: don't look back.
I like that. What's the hardest part about being a founder?
The loneliness.
Does fundraising get easier?
Yeah. Is your company becoming better? It's dependent on if your company is operating better.
I like that. What's a company that you look up to?
Airbnb. Anything Brian Chesky puts out, I read 20 times. Podcast he just did with Lenny Rachitsky, it's really, really awesome. Just talks about how he approaches life. And I think thinking about how these founders approach life rather than just like the operational component of their startups is a great way to understand how to frame your own life and thinking when you approach your business.
What is the best spot to DJ in New York City?
I really like this new venue. It's called Outer Heaven. I just had my birthday there in February, and it's in the Lower East Side, and they have a absolutely phenomenal sound system. That's like what I go crazy for more than anything is a proper sound system. It sucks when like the music's like crackly. I just played there. It's just an absolutely wonderful sound system. The people are amazing. The drinks are very unique. It's not just vodka sodas, and everyone there is dancing and having a good time, not there to have their phone out, post on social media, etc. People just go in there and lock into the music and have a really great time.
Awesome. Well, I'll have to check that out. Thank you, Avante. It's been a great episode. I'm so happy you could join us.
Yeah, really appreciate you having me and appreciate all the wonderful questions and insights.